Ladies and gentlemen, John Key, leader of the National Party, Prime Minister of New Zealand since 2008. Everyone voted for him without knowing his track record, who he worked for, where his career originated, and how he does business today. By the end of this short video, you will know enough to be able to make an informed decision when voting him in or not again. Little Johnny was born in a state house, the son of an alcoholic absentee father and guilt-provoking mother who pins all her hopes on her son, living vicariously through him, especially because she never had another boy and never remarried. She then allegedly inherited a large sum and allegedly spent much of it on her son. John worked for 10 years as a New Zealand investment banker since the mid-1980s, and when the market crashed he made a killing selling New Zealand dollars. He headed offshore in 1995, working for Merrill Lynch, the bank that was exposed as the world's first derivatives traders and went bust during the 2008 financial crisis due to its heavy investment in the derivatives market, swallowed up by the Bank of America, which it turns out John Key still has shares in, a conflict of interest considering anyone could Google the bank name and fines to see it's been fined many times for drug dealing, gun running, money laundering, and is famous for getting countries into debt. Is John Key personally profiting from New Zealand's growing indebtedness? The Bank of America also has a stake in the military-industrial complex, have profited tremendously after several successive, no-end-in-sight, illegal US wars. This gives you an idea of the kind of circle John revolves in. John's worked for Merrill Lynch in Singapore, London, Sydney and Ireland. When the Irish tiger economy was kicking off, it was allowing sweetheart tax breaks to big banks and financial institutions if they moved their back offices to Ireland. So John did, assisting 15,000 of his clients to avoid tax. The Irish economy was hollowed out with debt collapsing shortly after John skipped the country and put all his money into blind trusts. John Key knows what's in his blind trusts. He's a bit of a drinker and let it slip while a bit pissed that he owns a vineyard. It turns out that vineyard is in his blind trust, although he claims he doesn't know what's in it. This is because he's got two trusts, one blind and one not so blind, that mirrors the other one. He was in charge of business units like global foreign exchange and European bond and derivative trading. What is derivative trading? Basically, it's so complicated that the Auditor General once said something like, "It's such a technical area that I can't understand it, so I got KPMG to investigate themselves for me, and they assure me it's all good, bro." Recall the Great Depression? Of course not. In the 1920s, you could buy $10 worth of shares for only $1 down, allowing these people to gamble on the stock market at incredible volumes. Massive amounts of fake money and debt was generated, and the economy got sucked into it like a black hole. To prevent that happening again, a law was crafted called the Glass-Steagall Act, which was repealed in 1999, leaving the US derivatives market completely unregulated. The New York State Gaming Commission tried to regulate it because they saw derivatives as gambling, but they were unsuccessful. Obviously. In 1999, John was legally allowed to sell derivatives in America due to the repeal of Glass-Steagall, and was invited to represent Merrill Lynch and join the Foreign Exchange Committee of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, a private banking cartel that has a monopoly on the supply of money and loan it to the US government at interest and more or less control the US government through debt. Ownership of the 13 banks with shares in the Fed can be traced back to the world's most ultra-intergenerational wealth families hidden away from public view via an elaborate network of family trusts. John worked there for 2 years and twice undertook management studies at Harvard University in Boston. He became known as the Smiling Assassin by colleagues after personally terminating over 100 employees in one day with a big beaming smile. No guilt, no remorse, no conscience. A corporate psychopath. Charming and enchanting when you first meet them, but are ultimately shallow and have few meaningful, lasting relationships. They crave money and power and are willing to sabotage, intimidate, manipulate, steal, defame, lie and cheat shamelessly without guilt. Desiring attention and idolization with pathological narcissism and despising criticism, and often sexually promiscuous. Private prosecutor Graham McCready is including a DVD of The Wolf of Wall Street and as evidence against John Key, evidence of the lifestyle and mentality Key and co-workers likely enjoyed on Wall Street. Normally on Wall Street your earnings get paid 40% cash, 40% stock, 20% options. Key demanded to be paid 100% in stock and options. That's where his incentive to crime is. Imagine the opportunities for insider trading when you literally run the country. He tried to flush out commercially sensitive information from the Ombudsman when Transrail was being valued while at the same time owning shares in it. John Key just can't help himself. When Key left Wall Street after 6 or 7 years in foreign exchange, he was in the tip-top of the elite with roughly $50 million on salary and bonuses. Key refers to his $5 million mansion as the house that Merrill built. They had a beach house in Omaha and now have a $3.2 million Hawaiian holiday home. Only 202,000 people have incomes above $30 million. Roughly 2,000 of those are billionaires. John says we're not ridiculously wealthy. There are lots of people not seen on the NBR rich list that have a lot of money. Not counting his blind trusts, he could be worth hundreds of millions. Is he a Wall Street banker or New Zealand Prime Minister? Jumping forward to the 2008 financial crisis, Money magazine said derivatives were one of the chief causes of the 2008 credit crunch, a collapse that happened in the same year we elected John Key to handle the debt crisis he helped cause, as he admitted on Breakfast TV. And what did he do once elected in order to save us from the debt crisis? He borrowed more money than all previous prime ministers combined. We've gone from 8 billion to 60 billion so far, with 112 billion worth of derivative debts and off-the-books accounting since 2011 and growing. Key knew about his unauthorised biography long before it was released, and guess what? It doesn't even mention the word derivatives once. A man of the people, you say? He's supposed to be the Member of Parliament for Helensville and lives across town in a $5 million Parnell mansion he calls the house that Merrill built. Only had one public meeting in his electorate the whole election on the proviso that no one can talk about or criticise him, any other party or their policy or their candidates. And guess who was the only person that violated those conditions which John Key himself set up for everybody else? John Key! So, let me see if I have this straight. He's a psychopathic, narcissistic, passive-aggressive mama's boy with daddy issues, and he has control of a country that has no corruption prevention framework. He may have been sent here to destroy this country, but it is not destroyed yet, and we can change our future if we choose to. Sink Team Key, and it will deal a crippling blow to the financial elite's agenda. You can search and verify any of these facts for yourself. The research for this video was provided by Evelyn Gilbert from Aotearoa A Wider Perspective, Ben Vidgen, author of State Secrets, Penny Bright, anti-corruption watchdog, and Ian Parker, financial industry researcher. This is Vinnie Eastwood. Vote wisely, New Zealand.